Luigi Wagner on Twitter, he asked a good question. Is Resident Evil 7 a good place to start for newcomers to the series? I will start answering that. I think it is. I think, this is where it gets tough to not spoil things, whether it fits in the traditional Resident Evil storyline. We can kind of talk about that in general terms, but this game is such a different experience than any other Resident Evils in some ways. In a lot of ways, it's very much, a return to form, we keep saying, right? The survival, the items, the fact that it's very kind of a consolidated setting that you're going to learn from spending more time in it. It's also more atmospheric and tone and dreadful, like you were saying. But I think this is removed from the storyline of the franchise enough that you could come into this and it might not make you appreciate the story of the earlier games because it's nowhere near as just convoluted and weird and melodramatic, which I love about the older games. But I think Resident Evil 7 is a great starting point. It's a good way to... It's weird because if you play this and then go back to the other games, it's going to feel like two separate series except for a few Easter eggs. But of course, if you know the series well, you're going to see certain design tropes that have made their way over in a good way. I don't know, Scott, what do you think? Would you recommend someone that's never played a Resident Evil game?
I'm going to answer this in a really diplomatic, non-answer kind of way.
Come on.
So here's my response.
Diplomatic Scott.
Here we go. Here it is. I don't think that you need to have played older Resident Evil games in order to enjoy Resident Evil 7.
Right.
So if you have never played Resident Evil, you can play Resident Evil 7 and you will enjoy it basically as much as somebody who has played Resident Evil.
Okay.
That's my response.
Okay.
Because I don't want to spoil story stuff.
Right, yeah. Pete, you're about an hour and a half in. So...
So what?
What'd you have for breakfast?
Cheerios, banana, and 2% milk.
Ooh, 2%, man.
Very specific.
Yeah. Well, what Scott said.
Wait, in one bowl?
Yeah.
All
I slice
three?
up the bananas, I put on the Cheers, and I pour some milk.
What else what are you having for lunch?
I don't know.
Tussles Nick's hair as he walks out the door.
Because his pet.
Have a good day, champ. No, I was thinking more like his kid. Call back to the kid joke.
Poor
But pet works too.
Sweet bastard.
I'll be back later, hun. I have to feed the swamp goblin and change his litter. He's tracking.
So swamp goblins use litter boxes. I'm learning so much today.
It's a weird.
It's like an anthropological journey.
Nick is rolling in his chair.
You have to add water and mud to the.
Yes.
Damn, good answer, Peter. Rob Handlery really liked you. Off the cuff, your breakfast remark.
We should probably let you actually answer the question.
What was the no? I think what you said makes a pretty good point. The fact this game really does not try to make a huge deal about being part of the Resident Evil universe means that you don't really need to have those connections to the past. And the sort of modern horror, as you were describing in the last segment, also makes sense. So it really is a fresh start. It feels like something that is both Resident Evil, but it doesn't need to be Resident Evil.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that have played more recent horror games, which at least first person, aside from Alien Isolation, have been on the indie scene, right? It's Amnesia. There's
more so, yeah.
Yeah, and I think
Slender.
Obviously, again, to plug it one more time, in our Reviving Resident Evil series, we have an entire episode. The first episode is about how the decline of Resident Evil and Silent Hill, the flagship horror series, led to this increase in horror from indie developers who could take more creative chances because they didn't have the risk involved, the overhead and the actual AAA money, budgets involved. But I also really like that. I think Resident Evil 7 takes what made those indie games good, and I'm just using indie as a broad term. They're not all indie games. You have Outlast 2 coming up. Red Barrel is that's an indie developer, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, they're technically independent in that they are not owned by a larger parent company.
That term gets indie is just thrown around, but I think people get what I mean. Not AAA. I think Resident Evil 7 takes what made those non-AAA horror games great and also combines it with what made Resident Evil originally great in a way that I think this is the best introduction to the Resident Evil series. I think if someone has not played Resident Evil up till this point, as much as Remake and Resident Evil 2 are two of my favorite games in any genre, I don't think I would recommend those first. I think you'll have a deeper appreciation of those if you can see how it works in the modern day first.
7 might also set you up to not like those games, though, because
they are restrictive.
They're restrictive, and like you were saying, it's pretty campy. It's pretty. It requires a lot of esoteric knowledge of characters and events and.
But I mean, if you're playing Remake, that's when they were introduced.
What was
the characters?
No, I know, but I'm saying it. By and large, though, it's the campiness.
Sure.
It's the campiness that will make people be like, "This is
right.
You were almost a Jill sandwich."
This is
man.
A good game.
It's I think it will at least show you that these kind of things can work. Oh yeah, did you hear Tim Turry and I from Capcom played Resident Evil yesterday on a live stream, and he was using your account because you had the saves that we wanted to start from, and he kept getting you a bunch of bronze trophies. So I'm like, you're racking up the bronze trophies for Peter Brown. So Tim's like, oh, Peter Bronze. So we were talking about that last night.
That is pretty good.
Pete Bronze, reviews editor at GameSpot.
I need a tan if I'm going to live up to that moniker.
Pete Bronze.
More like Pete Saran Wrap.
Pete Self-Tanner. Pete Self-Tanner Browns.
I am transparent.
We have a very pasty crew on the lobby. Thankfully, this table is white, so hopefully the contrast makes us look less pale in comparison.
Or it reflects up at us and makes me look even milkier.
It's definitely possible.
Milky is a disgusting way to describe someone's skin.
Yeah,
Don't
moist and milky.
When we break this video, I'm deleting that.
Milky?
Please do.
Milky stubble.
At least it's not like you look very marshmallowy today. Pete,
Oh.
you kind of do.
I always do.
Pete Bronze.
Mike's getting antsy.
So I think I personally think this would be a good introduction to the series. I don't know if you're gonna like love Remake going back to it, but I think it'll show you how those kind of design tenets can work in a modern day horror game. I think in that
democratic answer of you. You combined our
diplomats.
Yeah.
Yes. It's my job here. So Luigi Wagner, thank you for the question. We were considering doing a segment on that, and we're glad you tweeted in at me. So that's the end. I'm going to plug a few more things before we end off the Resident Evil segment. Again, Reviving Resident Evil, the 2-part series that Timur Hussein worked on. Go watch the behind-the-scenes documentary. It's very good. Scott's review is up on GameSpot, 8 out of 10. He really liked the game. A lot of outlets did. I do. Pete's liking it so far. We have guides going up on antique coins, the bobbleheads, the New Game Plus items. We have a lot of that stuff going up. We have VR, which we just talked about if you're just joining the show, or if you're watching this on YouTube or GameSpot as a broken out video. Play this game in VR. It's a great game. It's, for all intents and purposes, it feels like Capcom is back with Resident Evil. And let's hope they continue this. They've kind of hinted that this is going to be another, that the structure of they do 3 games like this, 3 games like this, 3 games like this, not counting spin-offs. So let's hope theoretically a Resident Evil 8 and 9 kind of can build on the success that this inevitably will carry over in the post-launch weeks.